So interesting. I was reading a book, and it's actually on managing creatives, and it talked about how stress, kind of like not being comfortable, leads to innovation. Right.
Yes.
And that as we get too comfortable in our lives, we become less innovative because we don't need to. Right. When we're comfortable and happy, we're not finding fire. We're not moving out of the cave. And, imagine you thought about this. You said, hey, we lived under this constant stress of layoffs and stuff. But that kind of energy, leads to innovation. And
Right.
and then thinking about pharmacists are under a lot of stress, right? But, and trying to get them out incremental growth, 1, 2, 3, shooting for that, it doesn't feel risky, right? The shooting for doubling growth sounds risky. And we're teaching everybody to avoid risk and be less risky. So how do I want to think about how we help people try to strive for risk and try to be uncomfortable and realize that leads to creativity. But let's go on with, all right, so we're at your dad. We're in New York.
Right. Well, because of that, I knew very early I wanted to be in a profession that I got to control my own future. I didn't want somebody else, worrying if somebody else was going to lay me off. I love the responsibility of having employees and being responsible for other people. And
nice.
That's a great honor. That's a great privilege, and something I'm very proud of. One of the great personal accomplishments I've had, how we've seen so many people grow and thrive and work in a safe conditions. But anyway, so I decided to go into pharmacy school because it was a profession. I wanted to be a professional, and it was honorable, and you could make an okay living. I mean, when I graduated in 1981, if you graduated and your first job was your age times $1,000, you were doing well. So if you were 23 years old, making $23,000, and the first year I worked so hard because I couldn't get away from poverty fast enough. I worked a lot of overtime. I made $37,000 that year.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And then I said something that everybody can relate to is, boy, if I could make $50,000, I'd be really happy.
Yep.
Then I made $50,000, and I said, boy, if I could make 75 and then 100 and and it kept changing.
Right.
And the interesting thing about that is it's like chasing the horizon.
Yep.
You can see the horizon, but you can never get to it. And to me, happiness, the example I was giving you, that I'll be really happy when. And if you're chasing the horizon because you can't get to the horizon, you'll never be happy. So the way to be happy that I've looked at it, how do you define what happiness is? And for me, it's gratitude. It's gratitude. It's not looking about, if I achieve this, I'll be really happy, but look at where we started and where we are now.
Absolutely.
And look backwards and get gratitude. And that's what happiness is. And through all the success that, takes a lot of hard work and a ton of luck to be successful. And, it's such a great opportunity for the pharmacy owners who own their own businesses to control their futures and their families' success. It's within their own grasp. But my late wife and I, we always kept saying to ourselves, we're just a pharmacist and a social worker. And that's how we kept grounded.
Huh.
And, yes, I live in Boca Raton. Yes, I love living down here. I enjoy a lot of privileged things, but I appreciate them. I don't take them for granted. And I think it's important to stay humble and be appreciative of what you have, and how much more we've accomplished. And so as far as the pharmacy owners go, people go into pharmacy for one or two reasons. I think primarily one, either to make more money or two, to own their job.
Yep.
They want to own their job. And when you have a business that works because of you, you don't have a business that's really saleable. And for a lot of people, these stores are their golden parachutes to retirement. And but if you can develop your business in such a way that it works for you and not because of you. I mean, I've got 10 stores right now. They're all open right now. They're all doing transactions. I'm sitting here having a good time talking to you guys.
Yep.
That's something you can sell. And that is freedom too, that you don't have to be there every day. And, getting back to your very first question, one of the things that got me to where I am is when I went the typical path. Well, maybe not typical, but I had an opportunity to do some things. I have a patent that technically qualifies me to call myself an inventor for the transdermal application of steroids with ultrasound, which is
don't try that on the ladies at the bar, guys. Sorry.
No, it's a nice little certificate hanging up in my mother's house.
I love it.
But it actually was very successful. It was my first venture into doing something on my own, and then it led me to buy my first store. And one of the things, I started out like most people working for the chains I worked for Rite Aid for almost 10 years out of school. And they don't teach you anything. They're not going to teach you how to compete against them. They're not going to teach you or encourage you to go out and turn into competition. And you're the one who has the relationships.
Yep.
Right.
So they're not going to teach you those things. So people make the assumption that they did that they know. They make the mistake of thinking, just because I know how to do the technical work of a business means that I know how to run a business that does that technical work. So just because you know how to cut hair doesn't mean you know how to run a salon. Just because you know how to fix heating and air conditioning doesn't mean you know how to run a business that does that. And I've always said
True story.
Owning a business and being a pharmacist are two very separate and distinct full-time jobs. And it was hard. I worked my butt off in my first pharmacy for a couple of years, and it grew, but nothing spectacular, to the point where I said, I give up. I'm going to hire somebody and hire somebody full-time to work the bench, and I'm going to go find something else to do, and I'm going to take the cut and pay, whatever it was. And that really was a major turning point in my life. I made that kind of out of frustration by mistake, and I'd kind of given up a little bit. And then what happened is I started going out, calling on nursing homes, long-term care facilities. I built a huge operation that way. So sometimes you have to step back to move forward.